Hey guys, we've had an incredible time bringing back Always Open. It's been so fulfilling to share the show with you all and to have you be part of the conversation and to talk about issues that affect so many people in a candid and open manner. We wouldn't have been able to make it without you and your unwavering support that you've shown us. With the year coming to a close, we wanted to let you guys know that we are going to be putting Always Open on hiatus for the foreseeable future. This was our decision as we don't want to spread any of our cast and crew too thin, and we are focusing our efforts on other productions moving forward. The current landscape for content creation is really tough to navigate, and sadly we are growing limited on resources to spread across multiple projects. So we hope that all of our episodes over the last 7 years have inspired you to have an open mind, to be kind to one another, and to be kind to yourself most of all. We are so grateful for your years of support and excitement for what we do, and hope that you will continue to enjoy everything we do at Rooster Teeth and beyond. We love you guys. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Always Open. We're so glad you're here, and happy December. I'm your host, Barbara Dunkelman, and with me today we have two wonderful people, starting with Miss Jessica Vasami.
Hello, happy to be here.
Welcome back. And appearing for the first time on Always Open as my fiancé, Trevor Collins.
Thank you. Oh.
Also, applause for Jessica too.
I know the way you said that. I was like, I wanted to applaud, but I also was like, it was like nice and quiet, so I didn't want to.
Yeah, it was nice and quiet. Crew.
Woo, Jessica! Woo!
You had me in the first half. Not gonna lie, I was like, I think I've been on a couple times. Did I just dream that? But then, with the title,
as my fiancé,
the drum roll that came in silently.
Well, you're talking about how when you're in a relationship with someone, and obviously like partner is a very common term people use now, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But traditionally it's like boyfriend, girlfriend, and then fiancé.
Yeah.
And fiancé.
And then husband, wife.
Yes.
And so each one of those, until husband and wife, the woman has the longer title. Like girlfriend is longer than boyfriend. And then fiancé as a woman has 2 E's versus the male fiancé, which has 1 E.
I did not know that. I just learned that right now.
A lot of people don't know that.
No, I don't.
It's because it's French, and the feminine words usually end in an E. And so they just tucked another one at the end of it.
They just tucked it in it.
Do you know that to be true? Or?
Yeah. No, it's the fiancé with 1 E is the masculine version. It's the same word, but it's the masculine twist, so it doesn't end with the feminine E at the end of it. Yeah. That's true.
I think I knew that.
I definitely think you knew that. You know more French than you. You keep pretending you don't know any French.
You should have. Montreal.
You went to Montreal.
I know, I did go to
Montreal.
You know
I
Jessica
loved
went
it
to
there.
Montreal?
Yeah.
When?
And I, September?
It was in a
The
colder month.
21st night?
October? I went to October.
I went to October.
I went in October.
It was the
and
cold month of Montreal.
Yeah, and I didn't even hit her up because I thought she was from Ottawa, which she is.
Also am.
But also Montreal. So like
Yeah.
I was there and then she hit me up and she's like, oh, you're in Montreal? Let me tell you all the places. Like, oh, I thought Ottawa, my bad. I would have absolutely hit you up. But I loved it there. Like tiny European.
I feel also like
little city.
It's great to have recommendations for Montreal, but also anywhere you go is going to be like you could find tons of stuff on your own there.
Yeah.
It's not one of those cities where it's like you got to tell me the hot spots or you got to tell me the good restaurants.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everything is, you'll be fine. It's like Austin.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
What was that little speakeasy you told me about years ago?
Big in Japan.
Big in Japan.
Where's that?
It was like right around the corner from one of your favorite poutine places or sandwich places, but near one of those two.
I think it's on Saint Laurent Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like Montreal's 6th Street.
We pretty much stayed on that street. We did at like a little tiny hotel.
It's like a speakeasy.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like really... Well, as I remember, it looked all swanky, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna drink. I'm a young guy. I'm just kicking it out here. At the tender age of 27.
I'm a young guy.
I'm a young guy. I'm just out here. Yeah.
I'm just doing my thing.
Just doing it.
It was cool.
Well, we actually haven't recorded an episode of Always Open since you and I have gotten back from our trip.
Oh yeah.
Which is why we haven't talked about us being engaged now. Trevor and I are
Gesture
engaged.
broadly with the left hand.
Why we haven't talked about being engaged.
I'm just sitting here just like
Sprinkle.
the whole time.
Jessica, by the way, I'm going to jump right into the deep end. Jessica was one of the few people that knew. In fact, you might be the only person that knew like
I was going to
all
ask
the
you.
deets.
I was going to ask
All
you, like,
the
am I the
deets.
only person that knew? Who else knew?
So like
I think just you and maybe one other person, right?
Who was this other person?
So a few friends of mine knew that I was like ring shopping. Then a few friends knew that like the question was going to happen sometime before the
I
end
knew
of the
about the
year.
ring shopping.
Like,
Even she said that to me.
but I didn't want to throw out like too many details. And then people like Cameron, wherever Cameron went off to, like, and Wes kind of intuited it and like kind of knew that was going to happen. Mark.
Yes.
Mark knew because he's Irish, and I wanted some recommendations on locations
even though we went
Scotland.
to Scotland.
Well, that's because his sister went to school there, and she was from there. So, so he and yourself knew more details than most because of those reasons. Well, because he had more knowledge of the place, and you just like are just a very close friend to our relationship.
Can I say something that's so funny? He told me when we were on the boat one day, we were at a birthday party for a friend of ours.
Yeah.
Was that long ago that you knew?
Oh,
yeah.
Because that was that
was
July? Oh, no, that was September, I think.
It was hot. So
Yeah.
whenever we were in that 100-day window
I think that
of
was
100
September, though,
degrees.
because that was, I think, right before we started production. No, maybe August then. August, I think.
It was right before production. I remember us talking about it. So we were at a friend's birthday party, and we had one of those floaty foam things that we were all sitting
lily
around.
pad.
The lily pad. I'm not kidding. I'm right here on one corner. Trevor's on the other side on another corner. There might have been someone here, or Barb was literally right here. And Trevor and I are having this conversation. He's like, I'm going to propose to Barbara in Scotland. And I'm like, Barbara's right there. And I'm trying to like keep my shit together, but we're just having this casual ass conversation. And I'm like, you didn't hear a damn thing.
Right. We did a follow-up at Laurel's Halloween party.
Yes.
And once again, she was within 5 feet, but off we go.
And then also when we were at Kirby Lane before we left, I like kind of like hugged him awkwardly, and like Devin knew. I told Devin knew.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no,
I
that's
think you
fine.
always assume that.
Okay.
But that's why honestly, like I figured people would keep it
Yeah.
tight-chested, but also like, you know, people will tell their plus ones and then their friends, and like so it starts to ripple out. Which
he didn't tell anybody. It was just
I didn't expect he would, but you know, if I had told 50 people, then it would have spiraled. But yeah, at brunch that day, Jess could like, oh, like it's nice to see you.
It was like the
pulled me in
the day
and
we
said,
were leaving.
Tell me how it goes. I hope it goes well. and then blew a little bit in my ear, and I said, what was that?
It was so funny because like you were showing me your nails and you were just like, look, I got my nails done for the wedding, for Jeff's wedding.
Right.
Yeah, because the night before we left for the trip, it was Jeff and Emily's wedding.
Yeah. So it was just like all of us was just like, I'm screaming inside.
Yeah. And then I started thinking like, wait a minute, she got her nails done. I think she might know it's coming because the photos of the hand will happen. She's like, yeah, it's for the wedding.
It was both.
She's anticipators.
It was both.
She's anticipators.
Anticipators.
Well, I mean, there are some things that
Which is not a problem.
And also, you don't know this, but there was a few people who I was talking to about like the trip, and a lot of people were just like, "Oh, romantic trip in Scotland."
Stinky dragon folks.
Just everybody,
I
basically.
gestured
Everyone who
wildly
knows
into your
us.
camera. I'm sorry.
But everyone's like, "Oh, romantic place," like you know, blah blah blah. Blah. And I was like, I know, like. I think he might propose, but I also don't want to go in assuming he's going to propose. But I like kind of want to know if he's going to propose, but I don't want to know if he's going to propose.
Yeah.
It was like this whole like back and forth in my mind of like, do I want to know it's coming to anticipate it, or do I want to like go in with no expectations so that if it doesn't happen, I won't be like disappointed that it didn't happen on the trip.
Right.
When you told me that, I was like, well, be careful because Devin didn't do it there, so Trevor might not either.
You told that story on the podcast before?
No, I think I told the story of how he proposed to me, but not the fact that I legitimately thought it was going to happen in Scotland. And he did the same thing you did.
Yeah.
Brought a tripod, like set it up. We were in freaking the Isle of Skye.
Which is one of the most gorgeous
Stunning.
places in the
And
world.
like he came up behind me and I was just like, is this about to happen? No, not here. Okay, maybe another time. It's like, oh, no, not here either. Oh, we're back in Austin.
I
gotta be honest. I'm sure he's kind of kicking his own ass for it, but I do want to say, and you have shared the story before on a previous episode, so you go check out that episode. But the way he did it though was so
great.
romantic and so personal and so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you want to recount it quickly here?
No,
just for the people
he transformed our entire living room in our house into like an art gallery of some of our favorite photos of us and like put it into like an AI generator to make it look like it was a portrait art.
Oh, so like cast a filter over it to make it look like a painting.
Yes, and then I would go to each one and he'd be like, and here we have the...
There's an audio tour?
Yes, he was on the audio.
Oh, man.
What a performer.
He likes big spectacles. So I was like, all right, this is his way of doing it. I love that.
And he probably like already was like planning that in the works. So he wasn't thinking like, is she going to be thinking I'm going to propose on this trip? No, because I already have this thing that I'm planning.
Yeah. But
that's so funny.
I think I think when we went to Punta Cana a year ago, did I tell you on that trip?
You told me, I think one of the first days, you said, hey, just so you know, I'm not proposing on this trip.
Right.
I just want to tell you and I was like, oh, no, I didn't think you would be.
Right. Because we were all above board about that conversation, making sure that, like, obviously as you go into it, there's a surprise part that's nice and fun, but you also want to make sure as partners that you're on the same page. And so we hadn't really talked about it too awful much. And so I kind of also wanted to, just to make sure I didn't set her up for a bad time. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, it's not happening on this trip.
Yeah.
So
cool.
you can be liberated from expectation or anything.
Love that clear communication.
But that transcended then to Scotland too, where I'm like, I want to do it ASAP. Like, I want to get it, not get it out of the way, but like that way there's no like, I got to think about when it's going to happen, how I'm going to do it or whatever. And she's not constantly waiting for it.
Then both of us could just like enjoy the rest of the trip without like now.
Yeah.
And enjoy it as fiancés.
Right. Right. So then it becomes a celebratory trip.
Which is just fun. And also what we've learned, when you tell people at a restaurant that you just got engaged, they will give you free stuff.
So we're going to be freshly engaged for about a year.
A while.
Okay, perfect.
And then freshly married for about, a few years.
A decade.
After that. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I want to use that now.
Yeah, it was great. We would go to dinner and they'd be like, you celebrate anything? It's like, oh, we just got engaged. And they're like, oh, wonderful. And they would come back and be like, so just talk to my manager and we're going to have like the champagne on the house for you guys and blah, blah. And I'm like, oh. And like, obviously it was true. We weren't lying about anything. But it was just nice. People were really sweet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a really busy place and it was just so sweet how this woman went over and grabbed this gentle elderly couple and thrust them from the table and said, we have a freshly engaged couple, get out of the way. And then they turned to us and said, Madame and Mademoiselle, we have a table for you ici.
Madame and Mademoiselle. Also, we're in Scotland and they're French all of a sudden. Trevor really painting a vivid picture right now.
Wow, I love it.
No, but yeah, it was, people were hospitable AF. It was awesome.
So I know when you were telling me, you were like, I don't know where I'm going to do it or when I'm going to do it. It's going to just feel right. How did you know this moment where you just knew?
So I had a few spots across Edinburgh that I thought were special and would be very memorable and look very good and all of that sort of stuff. And so that way, like, no matter what, wherever we went, the schedule could be flexible.
Yes. He had like almost like a menu of things to do. Like Trevor also planned this trip, which is another one of those things that was a little bit of a giveaway of just like, you picked the hotel we were going to go to, you kept it a secret.
I'll be real. I would have done that anyway because I'm just geeking out fantasy nerd over Scotland.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
But also.
Both of you are.
Yeah. But also like, and so yes, that is part of it. You're not wrong. But also one thing that we talked about, but like for the listeners is like Barbara does a lot and she's at the helm of a lot of things. And so, and she's also, I think, a very strong leader, but in a role like that, you make a lot of decisions. Yeah. And I think she's come to realize that there is such a thing as decision fatigue, where you get absolutely like zapped of energy. She goes, I can't think of what we're going to have for dinner. Can I offload that? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, here's 2 restaurants that I think would be good options. I'm leaning this one. Does that sound all right? And then we go for it. So I was like, let me give her a vacation from thought entirely, right? I mean, obviously, like, as we're there, we can kind of ebb and flow and be flexible, but like, that was because she plans like the itineraries and logistics and all of that, and she just naturally does that. But I'm like, let me take that from you.
You ever seen that gif of the tiny little girl in a big winter coat going,
yes?
That was me this trip. No idea where anything we went to was. Trevor's like, does this sound good or does this sound good? What would you prefer? And I'm like, that sounds good. And be like, okay, we're going to go down this street and then turn this way and then go. And I'm like, la, la, la. And he'd be like, that's on Victoria Street. I'm like, no idea. We've probably walked there 1,000 times. I don't know where that is. Like,
I did so much pre-research. I felt like I'd been there. So when
he knew the place.
I never used the map I made of all the hot spots I had picked out, but I knew where to go most of the time. I'd put it in Google Maps to make sure, and then I'd put it in my pocket, and then we'd get there, and I went, I guess I didn't use it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like to check it kind of thing. But
I like Victoria Street, by the way.
Oh, it's awesome.
Harry Potter vibes.
Absolutely.
So
very whimsical, very magical.
Yes.
Yep. Then there's I think it's Green Market. It's starting to fade from me now. There's a lot of like amazing streets and aesthetics.
But you made like a list of, you said like the nice places.
Yeah, spots to go. And then I realized like when we landed that it was the Christmas celebration was going on like the day we got there.
Christmas.
So I was like, that's cool. Yeah. So we did that for a little bit.
We did the Christmas market.
What was nice though is like I kind of coaxed her into, I kind of thought about it on Sunday when we arrived. I was like, okay, I don't want to do it when we arrive. We're tired, but I definitely want to do it the next day if possible.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, of all the places, I think the Christmas market has spread into certain spots that are like 2 of the landmarks that I would have wanted to do it by. Like Ross Fountain is stunning.
Okay.
But they had like kind of the family festival over there, the Family Fun Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a carnival over there. And I was like, no. So I kind of coaxed her into like, let's go to Dean Village. I think it's like a really nice spot. I wanted to go there anyway,
So pretty.
but I wanted to like front load
the
that.
thing is like you had me played so well because it didn't seem like coaxing to me. He was like, there's this really like supposed to be a really nice place called Dean Village. Like, do you want to walk there? It's only like 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, sure.
It's like 15, yeah. But I also was like, we don't have to. Also, we found a really nice coffee shop on the hill, on Royal Mile, and we were just chilling, reading books, drinking coffee for like the 15th time, like because it was coffee and hot chocolates all over.
Hot chocolate. This one with hot chocolate.
Oh yeah. Well, eventually I wanted something hot, but no more coffee,
Yeah.
or I just never sleep. But I think what got you was like reverse psychology of being like, well, we don't have to. Like,
Right,
there's
which is why I was
another
like,
place we
oh,
could go to.
Because I assume that you would have planned like, I want to do it
Yeah.
here at this specific time on this specific day. And so when he was kind of like flippant about like, oh, like we don't have to, but like you want to go there?
Here's the thing too. We would have gone there.
Yeah.
And so
Beautiful.
it could
Yeah,
either
yeah.
I have proposed at a different spot or proposed a different day.
Yeah.
But
Which I love that you didn't have a certain time and spot. You're just like, I'm just going to feel it when I know it. And
Yeah.
that's feels great.
yeah. But got there. The weather is like, I don't know if a lot of people like overcast, but it was like perfect. It was like just light enough. The sun was kind of ebbing and flowing.
Perfect Scotland weather.
Yeah,
Perfect-
it wasn't raining
yeah,
that day.
Perfect
best.
coziness. And then there's, I forget the name of the river there, honestly, but it's just on the spot thinking about it. But there's like a bridge that goes over the over that river, and it's like well known for like just the looks.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look is like beautiful. And I was like, yeah, definitely right now. It wasn't like too busy or anything.
Well, you
But-
start going like, I think I'm gonna set up the tripod to take. You want to take some photos? And I'm like, yeah.
I was like, I was like, let's, less selfie and more like, let's have like posed photos, because that's why, like, part of why I got a proper camera was so like I could take a bunch of photos, but also like not be selfie central.
Yeah.
But there's a feature where you can like have it say, I want to take X number of photos every few seconds, every
Interval
however.
photos.
Yes.
But I misunderstood it when I was like messing with it. I thought it was like for the duration of 4 minutes, I want 50 photos. So like for 4 minutes, it would automatically divide and then do it so often.
Okay.
But what I was doing was every 4 minutes, take one photo for 50 times. And so I was like, that's going to be like 200 minutes of 50 photos.
Wow.
So like basically
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, it's not taking, I wanted it to go tick, tick, tick.
So you could essentially
tick.
just get
Yep.
without having to do a button or anything
Right.
like that, or
'Cause
like
I didn't
a
want my phone out to
self-timer.
control it. I didn't want to like, I just wanted to focus on the moment. So
Yeah.
so I'm fumbling with it for like 10 minutes and I'm like getting
Yeah.
flummoxed. And so she's definitely going like, oh yeah, it's going to happen.
Was your heart pounding the whole time?
Not so much, but I was getting a little like annoyed or like upset that the camera function didn't seem to be what I understood it to be.
Okay.
And then thankfully I just tested it by saying like, let's drop the time and drop the number of photos and see what happens. And I go, oh God, I'm a fool. It was hard to think straight when I was like already on the verge of blacking out because of excitement. And then I get it to work. It starts taking photos. You see like, it's like a slideshow of me walking in. We pose for just one solid photo. And then I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I turn to pull the ring out.
Well, first you grab my hands, I know it's happening immediately.
Yeah.
And like just like my they start just leaking. Like
Yeah.
I'm not even crying, and so my eyes are just like
Gushers.
like literally like that little gif of the people with
Yep.
the eye, like
Yeah.
that was me.
Yeah.
And so immediately I just start like wiping my face and stuff like that.
Yep.
So you have
yeah.
like one of the photos looks like the surprise, but it's actually like
Just
you
going
wiping
like this.
because like we both kind of knew it was coming, but we both blacked out.
Barb's like, I'm just so wet.
Yeah. But no, I immediately just started like bawling my eyes out because I mean, obviously, I think I knew it was gonna happen, but like just I think once he got the camera set up and came over, that's when my heart started beating really fast, and I was like, I think it's gonna be right now, and like I saw you like fumbling with something like in a pocket here, and just like again, kind of blacked out, and then
Yeah.
after like it had happened and everything like that, and we were like starting to like walk away from the spot. I think you went. You said yes, right?
Right. It was sometime later in the day. I was like, You said yes, and I asked, right? 'Cause,
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, yeah, of course. Did I? Like,
No, I'm definitely
Yeah.
sure we did. But in the moment on that day, I'm like, just for my own like very subtle OCD, I was like, I just want to make sure she said the word yes, because like then it's official in my brain and it clicks. But also like, but did she? Because I'm kind of blacked out. But like, obviously the answer was yes. Anyway, it was awesome, and it was so sweet too because there was a couple from Mexico that was just up the way, being very sweet to give us the space to do this because it's like it's.
yeah.
Kind of a hot spot, but it was like a lighter day. And as we were leaving, they were like, hey, we got video and some photos. If you are okay with it, we'd like to airdrop it to you.
Yeah.
And so in our timeline, as my photos are ticking away, the iPhone, we now have it all on our phone and on our computers.
Yeah.
They're all time stamped. And so you can see video that goes correlated with the photos.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great that you have that.
I know.
Really
it was so
sweet.
cool.
It was really sweet.
I love that you guys are saying you blacked out because the same thing happened. I kept using the term
Disassociate, yeah.
That's it. Where I was just like, because the first thing I said to him was I did not say yes at first. I said, this is so weird.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, and he just looked at me and he's like, what do you mean? This is so weird. I'm like,
This should be the least weird thing in the world.
I know. It was just so like, I just like left my brain. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here.
It's because I think
the
you and I
weirdest
talked about
thing.
this. It just feels like we're children. Like this is such an adult moment and an adult
mixed with
step.
blacking out.
Yeah.
And I think like I don't know what it is. I just like don't feel like I should be old enough to be engaged, but I'm 34.
Well, I mean, that's real. That's real though. I go, are we allowed?
Are we allowed
Are
to
we
do this?
allowed?
Well, we kept calling each other fiance, and we still do. And it's just like, my fiance.
What?
Like,
I know. It's just weird. It's like, God, it's so strange.
having to get used to
But
that.
I was like, we're just two human beings, like with vivid memories of childhood, but as adults now paying taxes, kicking it around in another country on our own volition. It's like, I don't know. I think at some point, like as you get older, adult onsets in waves.
Yeah.
And so you go like, so I then have sympathy for my parents who had me and my sister at least by this age.
Yep.
And so I'm going like, wow, parents really are just figuring it out.
literally. No, not even everyone.
Everyone.
Truly everyone. But I'm just thinking even like the next step and like, you know, in the traditional sense, right? Not for everybody, but in the traditional sense is like, okay, then kids.
Yep.
And so, so I'm just thinking like, if this is how I'm feeling just doing this stuff, I'm trying to think of how my parents felt when they're having kids. Because as a kid, you see them as an authority figure.
Yeah.
They got it figured out. They know what's going on. They have all the answers.
Right.
But you realize the scope of your questions are down here.
They do not
But
know.
then still, I mean, probably you guys do the same to this day. If you have like a question that you're not sure of, you call your parents still. Like,
or I Google it too.
I guess you could Google it, but if it's like something that you just want like parents' advice on or like what they did for something, I still call my parents for that kind of stuff.
You know,
my brother-in-law, he was babysitting his niece, and he was like, she's eating food now, like normal food. She's like, I think she's almost 2. No, she's 1. And he calls his mom because he made rice. And he's like, Mom, and she's like, oh hi, and he's like, can Riley have rice? And she's like, yeah, Riley can eat rice. And he's like, okay, thanks, bye, and hung up the phone. Like he didn't Google it, anything. He's just like, Mom, can she eat rice? She's 1. Yep.
Sometimes you just want to hear directly from essentially the source.
Yeah, essentially the source.
Like, is this cool? I mean, we turned out fine, so can we do this?
Yeah. Well,
do you think that there's a generational thing too with like that? Like, there's something shared between all human beings at like 30 and 40, right? But then there's some things that are unique to each generation.
I think
so. I think with our age, we're starting to ebb into a different territory where the internet is has become accessible in our lifetimes. We saw before, now we see after, but they didn't have that. And so a lot of it was practical knowledge, being hands-on, learning by experience, talking to other people, like learned in a totally different way. And I'm wondering if that offers more, less, or different but equal amounts of experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's interesting, actually, putting it that way.
I heard to think our generation, we're just children. We're just little guys.
I think there's a lot to that, and I'm not going to pretend to know it. I'm not a sociologist, though. I think that stuff's really interesting. There's definitely something to the idea that, like, as we, and even Gen Z, like the folks just below us, right, are entering the world, they're running into all sorts of, you know, not world-shattering things, but like when I was 11 or just about to turn 11, 9/11, right?
Yeah.
I'm about to become a voting age individual. I'm just about to turn 18.
COVID.
well, I'm young. The financial crisis, and parents losing jobs, and my dad was in the housing market as like a builder, and so that was like weird.
Yep.
And then like stagnation on the economy for a little bit, going through college. A lot of people clung on a job. There's like, I think there's a lot going on, and that's not to say every generation doesn't have that, but what I'm saying is like I think that set up a perfect storm for people like my age, having a bigger lust than ever for nostalgia, which is why it's just such a strong market, because like the 90s were like, hey, everything's great.
Yeah.
Christmases, for example, presents are pouring out the wazoo when you look at photos and whatnot.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that elements of that can't still exist, but like suddenly like, no, the lights had turned on and the roaches scattered, but like you realize they were there the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's I've heard chatter of that. Again, I don't pretend to know fully the depths of.
Yeah, I also think bringing up the generational thing is like, we were just talking about like we feel like kids and everything. I feel like the boomers feel like they became adults a lot quicker. And I feel like even Gen Z, I don't know if we're just like not growing up as much. There's like a level of us just not growing up. And I don't know why. I don't know. Does that feel
I get that. And I think
you?
it's because maybe it's the millennial generation that started focusing a little bit more on not having kids as much as the previous generations and wanting to be more career focused. And that could be a result of like women having more rights.
Yeah.
as time has gone on, and like things of that nature, and women being more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not free, but
just accessible. Like we're able to just do
more.
Do all the things
like,
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's played into like the fact that a lot of people aren't having families or kids. And if they are, they're doing it later in life because they want to enjoy their younger years without kids. And I think like you have to, mature at a certain rate once you do have children.
Yeah.
You have to be a parent. You are automatically like.
I wonder if that's maybe why we are more nostalgic in a way, because we're also, I don't know.
Well, I think we were old enough to see what was before this rapid succession of like wild things.
Yes.
And so we want to cling hard to it.
Yeah.
And I think Gen Z is young enough to not have seen those times, but be raised in a world where they're like, maybe they're adults quicker, or maybe they're just self-aware, or the illusion is shattered earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Santa isn't real, but for everything, but really young.
Santa's not real.
And so, well, Chag Sameach is my sweetness.
I just started celebrating Christmas.
Oh, that knows.
But like,
Annie?
so there's nothing to cling to. And so instead you just go, man, the system's broken.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, again, I'm speaking in generics and broad strokes. There's a lot of nuance in this conversation, but like, it is interesting. Again, I'm really fascinated with psychology and sociology, but
same. I hear you.
I hear you. Just an observer on this conversation.
Yeah. But anyway, just to wrap up the, I guess, story. Is then we got engaged and we spent a lovely week and a half or so in Scotland.
Yes.
And it was just like the most magical time ever.
Yeah.
When you were saying that you were like the little girl in the big suit. I mean, you had there was a couple of photos that he posted where you had your earmuffs on
big old
and
earmuffs.
you were like bundled and you looked like her.
Yeah. That was me.
That was her in spirit and form.
Yeah, there you go.
It was great. Yeah, he spoiled me, and if he wanted to, he would. Just saying. Definition of that.
If I like it, then I did.
Also, the hotel that you I tried not to like bother you as much on the trip, but I was like, where the fuck are you at right now? Like, what is the name of this freaking
That's
hotel?
something too that Trevor did. He didn't tell me the hotel we were staying at because he was like, this is just such a cool place and I don't want you to like see pictures of it until we're there in person.
You did. That was great.
Yeah, it was a really cool place. And I was also like making sure, because again, I kept asking her, I was like, are you sure we're cool with this place? It's not like going to the beach. It's not like one of those traditional R&Rs.
Typically, if we think vacation, it's like, oh, let's go lie on a beach.
I just didn't want to be
3 days.
self-serving by going to a place that I'm like, honestly, this sounds really dope. And I'm like, and after like a really hot summer, I was cool with like a total shift. And so all the way down to the room, I was like, I really hope, like, are we good? Like, are you really cool with like doing Scotland? Like, I want to make sure that that's all good. And you were like, absolutely.
100%.
And I said, all right. And then I found this place and I was like, sick.
Sick. But yeah, everything we did there. I mean, you guys went to Scotland. You know, it's just like
amazing. It's
such a beautiful place. And everyone is just like, I just like being in the UK because things are just like very straightforward there. There's not a lot of like fluff. And also the amount of meat pies and soups
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
sausage
The best thing
and
ever.
beer and whiskey
Oh,
that we
boy.
had that trip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think you put on a few pounds.
I definitely did, but I needed it.
You
I
needed
needed
it,
it.
yeah.
I'd lost a lot of weight, more than I had. My weight went down more than it had been in over a decade, which was like the back-to-back like illnesses and like being able to work out and just like various things. But I'm back to where I should be now. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I came back from Scotland. I was like, whoa, I put on more weight than I thought. And it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I went, oh no, my jeans aren't fitting me anymore. But
We indulged.
I mean, also like
Haggis.
Vacation.
you have fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Allow yourself
It's all
fun.
good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Living life.
What are you going to remember? Are you going to remember like the X amount of pounds you gained at this time?
not
Or are you
gonna
going to remember like the amazing food you had at this restaurant, the trip you went on?
You're not going to remember the food you didn't eat.
Yeah. No.
We had a lot of haggis.
Yes.
We had a lot lot of black pudding. These
Yeah.
are things that I would have shied
Sausage.
away from. The sausage there was awesome. It's not like as spicy and as highly seasoned.
Uh-huh.
And it's not as like tough on the outside.
It doesn't like pop when you
Right.
eat it, which I don't
Okay.
like with sausage. It's very
Yeah.
like easy to.
Yep.
I will say though, like
Talk
it is
about
interesting. It was great perspective to be if you can never travel internationally, which is a luxury and it is a gift if you can do
Absolutely.
it. Especially if you're an American. We have a giant ass country and it's hard to just like get out of Texas if you're driving.
Which I'm also finding a lot of Americans don't have passports because
There's a lot of places to
there's a
travel
lot of places
to in the US
go
too.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
US,
Yeah.
which is great.
But if
yeah.
you can get the perspective that comes with traveling internationally, I really think you should try it. It is awesome and it like gives you really good perspective not only on work, on your own life, whatever opinions and biases you may or may not have, in the world, politically, whatever. But it is interesting that no matter where you go, the grass is kind of always greener.
I know.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people here that go like, oh, but they have it all perfect and sorted over there, and then you go over there, and then they go, oh, but Americans have this part all figured out and perfect over there, and so you're just like ships
Yeah.
in the night,
I learned that from all my Uber drivers, like in Canada.
Yeah.
We'd have these conversations and I'd be like, oh, Canada is so awesome. And they're like, yeah, but Trudeau is doing this and our housing market is crashing. And I'm like, oh,
It sucks
well,
everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
everything is.
I think when you live a place, you look for the things that aren't working and that you don't like. When you look at some other place, you're like, look at all this good stuff they have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of also seeing the bad stuff too.
I know.
But before we get to our question, which we will get to a question today,
Yes.
we also I want to talk about something that you and I talked about briefly, which is the process of wedding planning,
Oh, yeah.
which is what we are discovering.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Oh, boy.
It's kind of fun a little bit, but there is definitely a lot of stress.
I think once I have certain things figured out in the process, it'll be more fun.
Yeah.
But like for me, obviously, we just got engaged. So it is like, okay, let's start thinking of venues, of dates and stuff like that. Just like the very loose stuff.
Yep.
Whereas like you're getting, a year
Getting
out
into
or
the
so
nitty-gritty, yeah.
from yours. And so like you are like settling down, but like just the cost of everything.
The cost.
And like all the moving pieces. But
Yeah.
we also talked about how like you're a producer.
Uh-huh.
And have been a producer for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's not as like, I think a lot of people think it's like, oh my God, it's so much. But when you're a producer, you're used to like working with spreadsheets and vendors and this and that.
Yeah. What's funny is, so I did make an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of tabs at the bottom, one for budget, one for guest list, one for vendors, one just everything.
Hell yeah.
And then it's one thing to make a budget with your own money / family, if you are lucky enough to have family to help you with your wedding, versus like work's money.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I was like,
This one's got a sting on it. Like the other budget
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
hurt like
Like,
this.
Well, it's only this amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, it's only what?
Yeah,
Fly
I know.
everyone in business class.
Yeah, like
Wait,
I've
huh?
emailed some vendors, florist vendors, for instance. A couple of them have come back and be like, "Thank you so much for reaching out to us. Just to let you know, there's a $10,000 minimum." I'm like,
Oh!
"What?"
We don't want flowers anymore.
So I just like cut off communication there. There is no more communication there.
Right. I mean,
That's not for
there's
me.
nothing to be haggled with there.
I don't
I
need
put
that.
out the feelers of a couple different venues, and one of the venues, which I knew was going to be expensive, but I just wanted to ask.
Just ask. Okay.
And I was like, could I get like a quote for like this many people around this time of year, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And they sent me like, it was pretty a generic thing, but they're like, these are the 3 packages we offer of like this room and what we provide. The lowest package was $45,000.
Where?
Does it start with a D?
No, it's at the Omni.
Oh, you're gonna say?
Oh,
you're gonna
okay.
name drop.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's a beautiful venue.
Oh,
It's like
absolutely.
Omni Barton Creek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, yeah.
How much was it? Did they quote you?
Minimum 45.
They
Okay,
say,
yeah.
just go ahead, pull
looked
in
at them too.
a Model Y and just drop off the keys. Then you can have your wedding.
Do you want to have our wedding at Rooster Teeth? Do you want to use stage?
Right
Do you want to
here.
use the
Oh,
stage?
boy.
You guys good for it? All right, here we go.
Yeah.
We're
I
gonna
mean, we could
televise
probably
the-
make this place look pretty nice.
You could. I mean,
use
we
all
could
your budgets
You
for
gotta become a
flowers.
first member if you want to watch.
We do have all the cameras. So we'll
Love
just
it.
stream
Oh boy.
But yeah, no. So it's a process, but
Oh man. Yeah.
it is one of those things. Like I know a lot of people are like, just elope or just get married
It's
by
a big
yourself.
trend right now.
It is.
It is,
Because of
and
the
I
cost.
get it
Yeah.
because who the fuck has that kind of money to spend on
Yeah.
a wedding?
Yeah.
It's absurd. But also, like for me and Jessica, you might be the same. I don't want to assume, but I have always envisioned having a wedding. Like ever since I was a little girl, I've been pinning wedding dresses since I've been like 15, probably.
You modeled wedding dresses, right?
I did
when you were
model
here?
wedding dresses
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
younger. Actually, in college, I did like a couple bridal shows, and like I've always like thought in my head whenever I go to other weddings, I'm like, ooh, I like this. Like I want to use that for when I get married, or
Yeah.
like, ooh, I didn't like that. Like I won't do that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, this is the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like people looking down on like, oh, but it's just one day and you're spending all that money on one day. It's like, well, it's a big milestone for a lot of people.
And
who,
also,
That's true.
you can mind
That's
your own
true.
business.
Yeah, right.
Also
That's
that.
true. And I'm going to draft that by saying I've always wanted, just since I was a kid, a first edition, first print, signed copy of The Hobbit. And it only goes for a paltry $500,000.
Jesus Christ.
But it's been my dream.
Sultry pup.
No, I'm just kidding.
my
I'm, just-
God.
I'm-
I know.
I'm being completely facetious.
Yeah.
I'm not at all making fun of what you're saying.
No.
But you're right. I mean, like I can't boys don't have that, you know? Like they don't. Some do. Some do, absolutely. But I guess like how I grew up, I just like never really thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, someday you do a wedding and stuff. But I absolutely respect the fact that this is something that you have wanted to do your whole life. And I say there is a lot of fun part to it all because you've showed me that as the course of like our relationship has unfolded and as we got more open with each other, we talked about those things, colors and like locations and like timing and all that. Like we're all kind of premeditated up to this point. So I'm like, okay, like I see what you're talking about. I see how like the fun part of pulling it all together.
vision.
I haven't seen any. You show me your picture board after
Okay,
this.
I will.
Of your dresses.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
I haven't seen them.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I think you shouldn't judge people for what they want to do or don't do. I think there's
Right.
a lot of people who are going, I can't believe you're having a wedding and like spending money on this and that. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, I think there's a balance.
Absolutely.
The people who go and drop their life savings on a day,
Hey.
maybe don't, maybe live within your means.
Well, there's budgeting for certain aspects of it. And there's also like, there's the unseen part of it too. Like the things that you essentially give up, like the not traveling on this, like you don't see a vacation not taken. You don't see a car not bought, right?
Yeah.
But so like so in any given situation, you know, like, I don't know. It's easy to judge, but
I've had the same car for 12 years.
Yeah, there you
oh,
go.
yeah, I've got a
Yeah.
2005 baby.
Yeah.
I'm
So it's
lucky
like,
that I think hopefully you're in the same situation of like most people have told me just to be like, don't listen to anybody else and just do what you want to do, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
That they're telling me to not listen to.
the only person I'm going to listen to is Trevor.
Yeah.
Because that's the only
Yeah.
other person who I think
Absolutely. It's
opinion
just
And I
You
listen to
too.
you because like you have such good taste. Like I'm very happy to like, she'll be like, Sweetness, come check this out. I got like another short list going on. These are the people I'm reaching out to for venues and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, these all look stunning, but I don't want to be like passive and be like, yeah, any of them.
Yeah.
I go like, oh, this is really cool. Like it has a really ornate kind of like timeless feel to it because it's in like old school place, but it is all inside. So I can imagine that there's limitations on like if you wanted to do day of photos with like the various bridal or groom's parties or whatever,
Yeah.
it might be limited. But then she's also like, right. Well, we want to be outside, and then like I'm like, oh, this one off, you know. So like,
Yeah.
but I do also want to get ahead of it and say, even like publicly, like there are stressful elements to it,
Oh, of
and I want to make
course.
sure that we spread that out, like to make sure that no one feels like
The guest list.
Yeah.
Dun
that's-
dun dun.
she's just like over the weekend, like while I was or while she was away, because she tacked on a little extra time to go to Birmingham
I
at
went to a
convention.
convention, yeah.
And I was home alone waiting. I think she like
That must have been crucial.
It was wild.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really missed
Especially
her,
just
but
right after.
I slept most of
yeah.
it. Just
Yeah.
shift my schedule.
It does
back.
suck to be like, we're engaged, now you're leaving
Yeah.
for a few days.
I left at like 2:30 in the morning too.
Yeah.
But anyway, in that time, she had already taken a whack at the guest list. And I'm just like, oh my God.
I was number 1 up there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Well,
Oh.
something that I'm learning, and something that actually was Trevor's idea.
Deflate. I could hear the balloon go.
Something that was actually Trevor's idea, which I think is great, is you make your guest list of like all the people you would consider to invite, and then you rank it in terms of like how important it is for them to be there. Like, for example, our parents are like, if you're ranking like 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest, like they're 5s, obviously.
Right.
And I would put you at a 5.
I'm a 5 too.
The
You
must
are
be
5.
there, like important to our life, impactful to our relationship,
People who are like
and everything
family
like
or
that.
like best friends.
But if you bracket it like that, it's like all the way down to, if you will, the 5 or whatever the lowest category is. They're all important people.
right.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking is like, if it comes down to a financial thing, because there is a knock-on effect to if you had 100 people versus 200 people versus 300 people, like it goes on to like the size of the venue, the amount of food, all the other things. And so I'm like, if it comes down to a financial thing, then like you just kind of take the next
Take out all the
tier
ones.
down, or
Yeah.
the next tier down, and so that way you can kind of like shift and.
Yeah.
Is there a
mold the
number
thing,
that
I
you
don't know.
want to stay below?
Probably under 150.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. If
Okay.
we could.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know where the list is at now.
I mean, I'll be honest. The initial list I made is 200 people.
Okay.
But that's
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, we're friends with them. Yeah, like that person would be nice to have there. And so those are the kind of people where it's like, well, maybe when we're in the chopping period,
yeah.
Yeah.
it could be like, I think also, and I had this conversation before with some folks out there, of like, people can't take it personally if they're not invited to someone's wedding, because it is really just a budget thing.
It really is. Yeah.
And it's not saying like I don't care about you or consider you a friend. It's just like,
you
know.
get it.
And I think most people know, like, if we've never had a meal together, or like I've never texted you, like I don't even have your phone number, then maybe
Yeah.
we're not as good friends.
Yeah. And
It's
at
tough.
this age, because we're a little, I wouldn't say we're like older getting married, but you know, we're adults now, even
think
though we think we're
traditionally,
children.
yeah.
Hopefully everyone, just gets it now.
I would
And maybe
hope so.
when we were younger.
Kind of baked in.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I mean, but also like, I'm the same thing. We were talking about this. I'm like, yeah, my instinct is like, I kind of feel bad because there's a lot of people I know and respect and would definitely want to be there. And then I go, but I have to remove myself from that feeling real quick, because I go like, oh, well, there's been plenty of weddings even within that group that I go, oh, I wasn't invited, but that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I didn't take it any kind of
Sure.
way, but I also understood.
I think it'd be nice if you keep it somewhat small, and then maybe have like celebration drinks with like everybody.
Perfect.
you
That's
know,
that's a
Yeah.
really
like,
good idea.
the next week or something, because then it's like you could celebrate still with everybody. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question. I know are you guys going to do bridal parties or just keep it?
Yeah, we haven't really thought about bridal parties yet.
Okay.
But
Cool.
We talked about a few strategies, as
Mm-hmm.
it were, how to approach it, but haven't landed on anything just yet.
No, I hear you. We're still having that conversation too. I can't
It's
believe how
tough.
many things there's to think about.
yeah.
Too much.
But then I also think like not having a bridal party
Yeah,
is like you
sounds
don't have to
great,
worry
too.
about people's dresses,
Sounds
people's hair
great.
and makeup. Like
Yep.
What's interesting is like, it's wedding season right now in our social circle. A lot of people like,
Yeah.
as you're going through your 20s, it kind of like, there's a few here and there, and then there's like a hot spot, and then like for me anyway, it kind
in
of
the
like
hot spot
it
right
cooled
now.
off, and now we're in another hot spot, and so like everyone's getting married and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting. So even in like a 5-year span, maybe it's a COVID thing, but like it's interesting how the tradition of wedding has changed. Things are different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all the way down to the wedding parties, all like the way the food is done, the way that like reception, whatever. It's all different. And it's also what I feel like is it's less dry, it's less boring, it's more personal.
Yeah.
And it all kind of makes sense. And so like you don't have to do this cookie cutter thing, which is kind of nice.
yeah.
But within that also creates more decisions to make. So you're just
Yes.
kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, well, and, or like if you want to try something new, you're like, is that okay?
Well,
Can
luckily
can
for
I drop
you,
that part of the
I've thought of
tradition?
it all.
Yeah.
well-
yeah. There you go.
I have from start to finish of what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for it.
You're doubling up as the wedding planner, but
Well,
slash
yeah.
bride.
Yeah.
You're like,
Well,
I do. Okay, then check it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm only getting a day of coordinator.
which is
Yes.
a common
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Well,
And I
they're
think-
making me get a day of coordinator, my venue.
Yeah.
Just somebody to be like, we just need a point of contact freaking
And that's
wrap
common.
this up.
That's common. And I think you'll be happy that you have that.
For sure. And I don't want to put that on any of my friends or family.
Was that what they would normally do? Like the venue, the caterers, the florists, they would like kind of, would it be somebody in the bridal party or something like that?
I think typically a lot of venues require a coordinator for the day of. So
just
that
for the
like
day.
the vendors coming in have someone to talk to.
Gotcha.
But I think if it's not that, it's sometimes like the bride.
Yeah, I guess when I was a kid, I never knew that
Or
there
like
was
the
like
parents of
somebody ushering the show along. I always assumed it was.
It's like a play. It's kind of like a performance.
And it's funny too because I was actually just talking to my parents about the wedding because like they're like, oh, we should talk about what you guys have in mind, like rough dates and stuff like that. They were very sweet about everything, but they're like, what about photographer? Like, oh, maybe Wes could take the photos. And I'm like, no, I want Wes to be at the wedding. Like, like I want Wes to be
focus
there.
And
like I wouldn't want anybody. Of course, like Wes is our favorite photographer. Does incredible work, but I'm like, I don't want to make any of the people who I would invite to the wedding, like my friends, to work. So like even like our friend Erin Claire, who does my makeup, like I wouldn't want someone to be doing makeup if they're at the wedding.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
For example.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're gonna coordinate it ourselves. Or are you gonna get a full on
TBD?
I think I'm just gonna do it, like a whole planner. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do it.
I know there's also options for like month of. Planners,
that might be
which I think would make sense because then you could like disseminate the information to them.
They kind of
and, like
stick the landing for everything,
tape up any loose ends and stuff like that, which I think
actually a good idea.
Is not bad, especially if you are somewhat savvy at planning things, which it seems like you are.
Yeah, and you are too. We both have the experience. That's why I'm like I'm not as overwhelmed as maybe some other people are.
Yeah,
when they first are like, oh God, this wedding. I'm like, well.
You're like, it's just a production.
We've had to do it before.
It's amazing how much being a producer translates to other jobs.
True.
Yeah. And you doing freaking RTX.
RTX. Yeah, I did RTX for a few years, so I know how to coordinate an event.
Yeah.
Which panel is going to be on the wedding?
I play video games.
Yay!
But you do it so well.
You do so well.
And you're so pretty.
How can I make this apply?
Let's get to one question before we wrap up. I know it's going a little long today.
No, it's all.
But this question directly talks about something we actually kind of briefed on. The bustling holiday season is here, and if you're anything like me, this is the time of the year when taking the time to prepare nice, nutritious meals for myself tends to fall by the wayside. Well, thankfully, Factor, which happens to be America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with the chef-prepared, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. And Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. You could choose from over 35 meal options every week that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, whether it's calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, and more wholesome options. I love their apple cinnamon pancakes. Those are amazing. You should definitely check those out. And the smoothies are fantastic. I just had a mango one right before the show. Delicious. Tons of options. So this December, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered straight to your door. Head to factormeals.com/open50 and use the code open50 to get 50% off. That's code open50 at factormeals.com/open50 to get 50% off. Enjoy. Websites nowadays are full of third-party trackers that analyze your traffic to find out what you do online. The truth is that what you do online is your business, and that's why picking a VPN that will keep your browsing private is crucial. Luckily, NordVPN is the fastest VPN on the market that defends you from everyday online cyber threats like malware and trackers before they could harm your devices. NordVPN has over 5,800 servers in 60 countries, and you could connect up to 6 devices with a single click to keep all your devices safe when you're browsing the web. And unlike other VPNs on the market, NordVPN has a no logs policy, meaning they don't store your browsing data and sell it for profit. So grab the exclusive NordVPN deal, nordvpn.com/alwaysopen, and get extra subscription time. Try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring our show. So this reads, I'm a 31-year-old female dating a 30-year-old male. We have been dating about 1.5 years, and this is technically both of our first relationships. I have wanted kids since I was 15, and I would like to have more than one kid, but I feel like my biological clock is running out. I have issues in the menstruation department that will make having kids a difficult and lengthy process. I'm ready to move on to the next step with my boyfriend, but he is very hesitant and has asked for more time. He said that he could see a future together, but that he wants to enjoy our time together now before things get serious. When I was upset that it sounded like he didn't think we were in a serious relationship already, he tried to clarify that that wasn't what he meant. He usually goes back to the fact that he is supporting his mother, who doesn't seem to be trying to live on her own at all. He doesn't have any close relationships with her at all, and actually barely interacts with her, but feels an obligation to take care of her. I worry that he is using that as an excuse, and my fear is that he will continue to contemplate for a long time only to decide he doesn't want marriage, which means I would not only lose him, but also my ability to have children. I'm not sure what he needs from me, to be sure, if that makes sense. I'm trying to be patient because I love him and I want him to be the man in my life, but I am not sure what to do. I know that I could adopt when I'm too old to have kids, but I also want to be able to be physically present with my kids and don't want to be an older mother who can't play with them. He knows my thoughts and fears about this, but I am terrified.
Ooh.
That is a rough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's layers.
There's layers.
Yeah,
There's
for
layers,
sure.
and it's a tough one to answer without, stepping in it kind of. I think one thing I'll say, and I think I would really like to hear your guys' thoughts, because it is more focused on her situation. But like a year and a half is a good length of time to really feel out the relationship that you're in. I feel like anytime that I've crossed a year and a half in a relationship, it's either been like, it's like there's a mental check-in where you're like, is this the person that I can see myself going longer term with, or is it like, or not?
Especially at age 31, where you're a little older, you kind of know what you want more than in your 20s.
I guess I'll just cut to the chase, because I'm removed from the situation, and so I can maybe be the blunt question in the room for them. But like, the guy needs to be very forthcoming. There needs to be honesty here. You can't, pussyfoot around on if this is something that you're going to want. But also, you need to, I think, respect the fact that like, if he's not ready now, and then this is going to be because of your biological situation, a lengthy process for a child to come to fruition. By the end of that process, maybe he will be ready for it. And that's something that he's going to have to almost trust fall into. But really, like, some honesty needs to be had. And yes, there's something going on with the mom and supporting that, but that can't be the only thing, because then she's left to extrapolate out a future where like, okay, that still is the thing.
Right.
I need to make a rash decision now, even though I have really strong feelings for you. This could be the end of a family life that I'm looking for. So
it's also possible he doesn't want kids and doesn't know how to tell her that.
Right. And that is, I sympathize,
a valid-
a very difficult truth to have with somebody.
Yeah.
If you're not on the same page.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you on the honesty, because this is somebody else's life, and I've heard men regret the fact that they took away a past ex's childbearing years because they just didn't tell them sooner that they didn't want to be with them, and now like that time has passed, and they deeply regret that. There are other options too, if you do have this honest conversation where if he eventually says, yes, I do want to be with you, I want to marry you and have kids, I just can't right now merely because I have to finish taking care of my mom and figure out that situation / I want to see this further, whatever it is. There are other like medical options, such as like freezing your eggs. If that is an option, that has worked for many other people. And then, just having that honest conversation.
It's
and
also
making a decision for yourself too. Like, do you want to sit around and wait too?
Right.
You know?
Because maybe, sperm donor could always be a thing if you really want to have kids and you don't want to wait for them.
Yeah.
Or, and obviously that's a very extreme, solution if you just want to have them on your own.
And that's assuming, I imagine, that they have broken apart, right? You wouldn't want to like
have someone.
I know we're
else's.
together and you don't want to have kids, so I just kind of handle this
That's
my own
more
way,
if you end up not together.
Yeah.
I will say, and not to like play devil's advocate, a year and a half is not a huge amount of time to have been with someone
100%.
and like everyone's different. Every relationship is different. Like some people know after a few weeks or months of dating someone, like, this is my person, I want to have a family with them. Cool. But a year and a half in the grand scheme of things is pretty short in terms of like determining if this is my person, if I want to have a child with them.
I didn't know a year and a half in. I don't know if you guys knew.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he was my person probably after 2 weeks of dating, but
Oh, okay. Oh, I love it.
but like in terms of like choosing to have kids, I think is like a whole nother decision.
Yeah.
And if it's something that he hasn't really thought a lot about, or like is still kind of figuring out his own life and what he wants out of life, I get it. And I will say, like, I understand the biological clock thing. Like, I'm 34, and it's like time's a ticking.
Yep.
And you can't stop it.
Yep.
You're 31. That gives you probably a good 10 years before it gets to be like more of a risky situation. But you have at least 10 years to like really think about it and decide. So I wouldn't put that kind of pressure on yourself quite yet. Maybe if not to put any pressure on the relationship either, but maybe it's like, okay, within like the next like year or two, if we haven't like progressed or anything like that, or no decision has been made, like
Right.
maybe
If you're 0 degrees away from where you are now,
yeah.
a tough truth needs to be had, or a tough decision needs to be made, probably.
Yeah.
And also like it's up to you to determine what is most important in your life. If you're like, I want a kid more than anything, and if this person doesn't want to have that with me or give that to me or whatever it is, then maybe it's time to find someone else. And it's really sad because I can't imagine being in that situation.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like I would choose Trevor over anything. Like if I really wanted to have kids and he didn't, I would choose not to.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think like if one parent really wants to have kids and the other doesn't,
Yeah.
you don't have kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, like that's just like you should
It's one
never
of
have
those-
kids together with half of the party that doesn't want them.
Right. Because then animosity can spiral, and then you end up in really precarious positions as a family. And I don't know, I'll let you extrapolate those potential hypotheticals, but it creates a tense household, right?
Yeah.
And that's
But,
not
yeah.
fair to anybody. But
yeah, if it is like the most important thing that you want to do, of like I need to have kids, then you should be able to do that. But it's probably not going
Not
to
gonna be with that person.
Not going to be with that
My
person.
one of my really good friends, she was dating a guy for 7 years, and they she had always said that she wanted kids, and he was like, oh, you know, like maybe, and they were not necessarily in a honeymoon phase, but when the time came of like, okay, are we going to get married and really do this? He finally was like, I don't want kids. And she's like, okay, well, I do. And they
feel like
they
that
were
conversation
they were
needs to
going to
happen.
get married.
Yeah.
And they have now broken up because it's like her priority was like, do you want to marry? Do you love him enough? I don't love him enough. It's like, what are your priorities? Do you
they're
want the
two
kid?
very high priorities.
really
right?
are.
Like
Right.
it's not putting anyone down.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's just-
But you have to
do have
choose
a
what is-
what's more important in your life.
Yeah.
To be frank. So I mean, I think if
It's hard. Please don't beat yourself up for this is a very difficult spot that you're in, and give
Right.
yourself some grace too,
Yes.
because
but also
it's tough.
Also, give yourself some time. I understand biological clock's ticking, and if you want to have multiple kids, it's obviously better to start sooner so that you could have them as healthily and safely as possible. But you still have time, and I think like if you really feel this person is the one for you, and that like you want to make sure it's right, and that this is the person to do it with, like give it some time and allow him to also like be ready for that. Because if you're gonna have kids with someone, you want them to be ready.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
oh boy.
Although that being said, I have heard like there's no right time.
There's no ready.
Yeah.
So I guess in that case, it's like, he doesn't need to come to a decision like yes or no for sure, because that might not ever sink in for anybody.
Yeah.
But this guy, and I think everybody maybe needs to, not determine in this moment yes or no, but do you ever see yourself getting to that spot? Do you think that is something you could see yourself doing, is having kids?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and this is what he says to her, then maybe it's like, okay, well, let's start figuring out when that might be, but no pressure right now.
Yeah.
But if it is something where like there could be a percentage chance where he goes, I just don't know if I can see myself getting there,
Then maybe that's a
then that's
that's
when
going to have to be the
then
answer.
that's when a decision that she'll have to make comes to fruition.
Yeah.
But I will say, and Barbara, you and I talked about this the other day, like just as every now and then we reaffirm one another, and like we do like little check-ins to make sure we're all good, and we're just like very open and honest with each other. But I think one thing that I hope a lot of people know or learn at some point, and I hope I can help here, is like a tough truth now is worth having. You need to do like it, because it will only get worse, and it will only grow into a bigger and bigger problem. I don't know, like whatever the pain you think this current truth is that you're facing and not willing to confront, perhaps, and I'm not trying to assume, but in this 7-year relationship, him going, well, I don't know, could be skirting the harsh truth of no, I know she wants a yes, but I'm a no, so I'll just say I don't know because that's easier.
yeah.
Leads into another year of it, until 7 years, again, whenever that might have, like 7 years of man, this is a really painful spot, rather than if I just had the uncomfortable moment earlier.
I think if you see yourself entering a serious relationship, like if you've been dating someone and you're like, okay, this is like a thing, I think that's the time to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think like the longer you're with someone and the more attached you get and the more like it makes it harder to make those decisions if
you brought up a good point, because like maybe in the first 2 to 3 years, I started telling Devin, because he in the beginning was like, yeah, I want kids. But then I was like, I don't know if I do. And I just want to put that out there. And then I, over the years, would send him like articles I would find from other women as to why they're not having kids, and kind of educating him on that perspective. And he started to really understand. And finally, he's now at a point where he's like, I understand. And I'm okay with that. And then one day I was just like, well, what if I would want them? He's like, what? He's like, I've already understood and processed that you don't. I'm like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But again, like at any point, anything could happen. I think we're not like a definite no, but it is just like making sure to have these constant check-ins, like you said, are extremely important.
Well, and also, the stakes don't have to be so high either. Not to get away from this situation, but it could also be like, again, just for the sake of, this is an amazing podcast to hope to impress upon people the lessons you learn the hard way. But like, even if it's something, the way your partner folds the shirts, or if your partner leaves the door open to the bathroom and the light comes in, whatever the thing is.
Or if you pee in a cave like me.
If you pee in a cave, well, that's not a problem.
What?
Sometimes I don't turn on the bathroom light, and Trevor's going, are you peeing in the dark? And
I call her my little cave dweller, but like, that's not a problem.
I thought you like go in the garage and get this.
But like, I think everyone has like, everyone listening at home can kind of go like, oh yeah, there is like this one like small thing that bothers me. Well, there's some things that you can be mature about and just kind of move past, and then like it never bothers you again. But there's some things that are like handshake deals between partners that like, well, the way you kind of like this, like, sometimes you just need to confront that and be honest about it, because otherwise it could build into animosity that could really rattle the foundations of a relationship. And so like, again, it doesn't have to be having kids, a big thing like that. It could be silly little
like,
mundane
hey, you never
everyday.
put your dishes away.
Right.
It builds up over time.
Because then you think about it every time and it eats away at you. And then like, then suddenly it's a big blow up or whatever happens. And it could have just been like, hey, do you mind like doing this? Like, oh yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
And you go, oh wow, it didn't hurt anyone's feelings.
And
cool.
hopefully in a healthy relationship, people will not take it as a personal attack.
Right. And that's the other, that's the back and forth you hope to have in a healthy relationship.
To make my partner happy, they would like me to help with this. And, you know, I could be putting more effort into that. So yeah.
Yes.
But also,
I don't think the kids thing is a thing that you should do just to make someone happy either.
Oh my gosh. No, definitely not.
That is a completely different.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep.
That's something you need to want.
Honesty again.
Because they're not asking to be born.
And I know there's a lot of, there's a lot of situations where people are like,
I was a knocking.
Mommy, daddy.
There's a lot of people also who say like, I didn't want to have kids until I had one. And then I was like, this is my whole life now. And like, I could never imagine
possible scenario
which
exists,
I totally get that. Like, of course, if you have a kid and like the same, we've talked about this before. Like if we ever decided to have a kid, we would fucking love that kid. And it would be our whole life, I'm sure.
It would
but
be
also
the
like,
priority.
But also we like our lifestyle right now and we like the way things are now. And like, you never know how that could change when you make a big decision like that. So again, I don't know if this is helping the question more, but
I think we're giving a lot of information and giving different perspectives. I think it will help in some way.
The unfortunate thing with this type of question is it's not loaded, but it's incredibly nuanced. So all we can try to do is offer perspective and hope it helps because it's definitely going to rely on a lot of honest conversations and feeling yourself and your partner and your world out a little bit.
And knowing that there are medical options, again, like even because I think they mentioned that there might be some things that they might not, that is harder for them to get pregnant. And like there's IVF that has worked for a ton of different people. My sister's going through it right now as well. And it's just, there are options to help. Just in case.
I also will say, and it will sound maybe a little silly, but it's something I think about a lot more now, is, one of the concerns is like staying mobile and being active with your kids. And I've heard that as long as I've been around relationships thinking about kids is like, yeah, you do it. Like, you don't want to have kids too late on because you want to be able to be active with them. And that's totally fair. I will say one thing that can help with that aspect, again, ignoring everything else for a second, is mobility, exercising, staying active in a way, walking a lot, getting your steps in is silly, but like stretching every morning and night. Like a lot of that stuff will keep you physically young as well. So you can keep up with kids tumbling around,
100%,
you know?
100%.
So
yeah,
you're not like, I don't want anyone to feel helpless in a situation that can feel helpless. There's a lot to consider. I really appreciate you mentioning like the medical services too, because like there is a lot of options too.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Well, thank you guys for your input. That was great. And thank you for your
Thanks
question.
for the question.
As mentioned, you might have seen at the top of the show, this is our second to last episode of Always Open. We will be wrapping things up at the end of the year. So next week will be our finale episode. We have some special guests that I think you guys will enjoy. But Trevor, where could people find the stuff you do? You want to plug any podcasts or anything like that? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I have Red Web, a show about mysteries, unsolved true crime, supernatural. If you like ghosts and aliens, we got a little bit of that too. Anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also do some improv stuff with my boys over at Dog Bark on YouTube and also on social media. So yeah, come hang out.
And Jessica, where can people find you? Some stuff you're working on?
Yeah, 30 More Minutes. Trevor has once called it the sister podcast to Red Web.
This is my sister podcast, and I'm their sister podcast.
Yeah, there you go. That I host with Elise Williams of Fun House. Talk about all things morbid, dark, macabre, grisly, bump in the night type stuff. And we're also up in our social game. We're making some weird TikToks. We're going to start hopping on some TikTok trends. So check us out there.
And what's your social handle?
At 30 More Minutes on both Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, podcasts, anywhere you listen to your podcast, we're there every week now.
Wonderful.
Every week. So
wonderful.
we're having, and we have some really cute merch also.
You guys do. Your guys' merch
I like our merch
ass.
at the Rooster Teeth store. Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
cute.
And then you guys have probably heard me mention it before, but I'll be doing more work with Stinky Dragon, Tales from the Stinky Dragon, which is our D&D podcast. We do a really fun show that we are really proud of every week. So find us at Stinky Dragon Pod on social and stinkydragonpod.com. And also for all of us here at Rooster Teeth, obviously you guys are what keep us going and are the people who are the reason we have the ability to do what we do. But the thing that really helps us is first membership. So if you go to roosterteeth.com or even stinkydragonpod.com/first, or I'm sure you guys have...
Plug your stuff.
Okay.
It's your show. Get it, baby.
So yeah, go check out First because that really is the best way to support what we do and gives us the ability to continue to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, times are really tough these days in the industry and in media and content creation. So we really do rely on people like you guys supporting us. So do check that out if you have a chance to. We really appreciate it. But Trevor, Jessica, my
Barbara,
my Jessica,
Bob
my Twevo, my fiance.
Beyonce.
Thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for being here. And we will see you for our finale next week.